Top 5 lessons that I learned from my clients in therapy. So, what's so great about this episode is that you do not have to go through hours or months or even years of therapy to understand the top 5 lessons that one can get from therapy. You know, as a therapist, I'm the one that's normally giving the information, giving the lessons and things of that nature. But what I've been able to do lately is that I've been able to actually take in information from my clients, learn lessons from them. You know, something that's so great about being on, let's say, the other side of the couch as a therapist is that I get to see how people respond to negative thoughts, uncomfortable emotions, obstacles, trials and tribulations, failures, anything that you can think of. And as a result, it tells me how the human mind works. And I gotta tell you, we are more similar than we think. I've had people who are making 6, 7, and even 8 figures still feel like they lack when it comes to their confidence, when it comes to being enough for their friends, family, or for just the people on this earth, if you will. And I've come and I've had people that are making less than 6 figures and say those exact same things. So it's not about how much money you make or where you are in life. Those things don't define or determine whether or not you have problems. The only thing that's guaranteed in life is that we will have problems. And what we can control is how we respond to those problems. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you guys all the lessons that I've learned as a therapist by simply watching my clients. So my favorite one of my first ones, is that we tend to forget our past successes when we are faced with new challenges. This is something that I realized from my last client. So about 2 days ago, we were sitting in a session and he was talking to me about all the ups and downs that he's going through because he has a new position. And as he was explaining it to me, I sat back and I thought, weren't we here 2 weeks ago? Weren't we going through a very similar problem as the one you're just now describing? And when he sat and thought about it, he was like, yeah, like I have gone through this. I'm like, exactly. So what should that tell you? That should tell you that you have what it takes. You have something inside of you to help you get through this hurdle because we've done it before. But the thing is we become like deer in headlights. We start to see all these things that are causing us to fail or things that will cause us to fail, right? So sometimes we're projecting into the future thinking, oh man, there's no way I can figure this out. There's no way I can be successful with this goal. But when you look at your past, when you look at your life, you will see that you have done hard things. You have had successes in your life. So what makes this any different? And also, this is the value of doing hard things. Because when you can look back in your past and see that you've gotten yourself out of a pickle time and time again, that will give you confidence that you'll be able to get yourself out of this pickle today. So what this tells me whenever I'm going through tough times, because as an entrepreneur, let's face it, we all go through tough times. This tells me that I need to stop and look and see, have I gone through a similar problem like this before? If so, I have to trust in myself that I can get through this. A great example is just going through all the software that we have to go through as entrepreneurs. I'm in a coaching program right now, and every time I go through the next phase, they're telling me, all right, you need to download this software and that software. And when you download it, it's so much different from the previous software that you're using. So as a result, there's this whole new learning curve that you got to go through. And I get discouraged, I got to be honest. But what helps me to get through that learning curve, what helps me to still stay motivated when I'm feeling discouraged, is the fact that I've done this 2 phases ago, that I've done this maybe even a year ago. We tend to forget our past successes when we are faced with new challenges. Okay, I want to make sure I say that point again. So again, one of the first main lessons that I've learned as a therapist is that we tend to forget our past successes when we are faced with new challenges. Also, I forgot to mention, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that way you can get more information like this. And the greatest thing about subscribing to this podcast is that you can get therapy tips, mental health tips without sitting in a therapy session or paying a lot of money for my time. This is absolutely free, so why would you miss it? The second most important lesson that I learned as a therapist watching my clients is that we tend to be more talented than we think. I love this one. I absolutely love this one. And I'll tell you why. A lot of times, again, when we're facing these challenges, we may start to doubt ourselves because this challenge may look different. But what requires of you from this challenge, right? What is required of you from this problem is probably no different from what was required from you maybe 2 problems ago or 2 challenges ago, if you will. So again, you have what it takes that is inside of you to overcome this obstacle that you're trying to overcome. Now, why is it that we're more talented than we think? Why is it that we have this negative bias towards our skill set? I'll tell you why. It's because we have front row seats to the worst movie ever. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So you and I, we share something in common. We notice every failure that we have made. We've seen every mistake that we've made. And we've noticed every negative thought that has come across our mind or every negative judgment that someone has told us. So as a result, we have this huge catalog of negative stuff that is just wired up here in our mind. So when someone comes and say, hey, you're very good at this thing, you're very talented at what you do, it's like, really? Because we all we can see is all this negative stuff that we've either gone through or been told that we are. So this is what I mean by we have front row seats to the worst movie ever. So what we want to do is make sure that we're still watching the movie, but we're not being consumed by the movie. We're not living inside of that movie, if you will. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've had clients who told me they have a test coming up, an interview coming up, or they have a sale that they're about to make, and they're nervous, and I give them skills, and they come back and tell me, Coach, I killed it. I nailed it. I got a job that's paying me way more than I was before. So many different things that I've heard. And what's crazy about that is I know that they have what it takes. And that's why they need someone that has a completely unbiased view of their skill set. So again, we tend to be more talented than we think. You are more talented than you think. And there's even an article that I've been sharing with all my clients this week. And it's an article that states that 85% of the things that we worry about doesn't even happen. And of that last 15% of the things that do happen, we realize that we have what it takes to overcome those things, or that we learn a valuable lesson from them. So when you sum it all up, it basically stated that 97% of the things that we worry about, the worst part of that is just the worry itself. 97% of the stuff we worry about, guys, that's giving us anxiety, the worst part, the most painful part of it all, is the worry that you're causing amongst yourself. All right, lesson number 3. So we tend to put more of an emphasis on things that don't matter than the things that do matter, okay? And I give you an example, okay? And I may talk about this in another podcast episode. But as you may imagine, I see a lot of entrepreneurs and people that are working high professional careers. So sometimes I may have someone that is a COO, CFO, CEO, right? So people that's in the C-suite positions, right? So basically the people that are running the companies. And a lot of them will come to me, and it's because they're feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, anxiety at work, depressed, all that stuff. And when we sit down and we talk about the things that bring them happiness, right? The things that make them feel happy, feel joy, feel excited. What's funny is that nothing about their work comes up. And we see this through an exercise that I give them, which is called the top 10 moments. So what I have them do is to write down the top 10 moments of their life over the course of, let's say, like 10 minutes. I may give them 5 minutes, but I sometimes give them 10 minutes to do this because it can be really tough. So after they write down their top 10 moments, the top 10 memories of their life, I then tell them a story about how they have to essentially lose those memories, right? I normally say that they fall down, or imagine that you fall down and you get a concussion. And because you have a concussion, you now have to lose 3 memories, if you will. And once they get up, dust themselves off, they fall down again, and now the concussion is worse. And now they have to lose 4 memories. So they look at their list and they cross off 3 memories first, and then they cross off another 4. And that leaves them with 3 memories. And when I ask them, what are the 3 memories that you just cannot forget? A lot of times, those memories are centered around their loved ones. It's centered around their kids, their marriage, right? It may even be a vacation. So it doesn't have anything to do with work. But yet, these people are probably putting 80% of their time and focus to their work. And if I were to ask them, on that top 10 list, did work even crack them? Some of them may say yes, but I guarantee you, when that first 3 cross-outs that I asked them to do, work was probably one of the first ones to be crossed out. So what does that mean? It means that, yeah, work is important, but when you boil it down to the nooks and crannies, or when you get to the nooks and crannies of things, work isn't really all that. Work isn't the thing that we do to live, right? It's not the thing that gives us meaning, if you will. So we tend to focus on things that we really don't care about. And I can also say this about other people's opinions. We tend to find ourselves so obsessed with how people see us that we forget how we see ourselves. And when we forget how we see ourselves, we allow other people to define who we are. And what that does is it creates a very sensitive, a very fluid sense of identity, a sense of who we are. So now when someone says you're not good enough, guess what you're going to do? You're going to believe it. And you don't have to. And that's because you're putting an emphasis on what they think rather than on what you think. So again, the third lesson that I learned from my clients is that we tend, as people, focus on things that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And if you want, you can even ask yourself, when I'm on my deathbed, what memories do I want to reflect on, right? What things do I want to look back on and be excited that I did, right? Excited that I evolved myself along. So lesson number 4 that I've learned from my clients is that the obstacle that is in your path is not hard because of the effort that is required, but rather it's hard because it requires you to make a decision. I love this. And I saw myself doing this maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago where I was struggling with something and I had to ask myself, what is it that I was actually struggling with? And honestly, it was just me deciding to pay for a software, right? I was thinking, could I just use a simple or maybe a cheaper software? Is there another path that I could use, right? Another path that I can go down? But to be honest, all of that thinking tired me out so much that I really didn't get work done that day. And as a result, it felt like the next step was hard. But all I had to do was commit. And once I committed, it made that task so much easier. I don't even think about it now. But the thing that's driving us crazy, the thing that's getting in our way, the thing that is causing us to procrastinate is not that the work is hard. Because trust me, you've done this work a million times already. And even if you haven't, I can trust and believe that you can break these steps down with whatever it is that you're doing. So let's say it's a podcast. It's not that hard to get a podcast started. All you got to do is buy a camera, buy a mic, and to be honest, you don't even have to do that. You can just start recording on your phone. All you have to do is hit play. But the decision of what do I name the podcast? What's an episode that people will love? What is it that I should do when my likes or my views aren't hitting the numbers that I want it to hit, right? We start to confuse ourselves. We start to make these next steps more difficult than it has to be. All you got to do is just decide to hit play and just start speaking. The topics, they will come. So again, one of the biggest lessons that I learned is that this obstacle that's in your way, trust me, I don't think that it's hard. I think it's just requiring you to make a decision. And the thing about making a decision, the thing about making a commitment is that now you're on the hook. When we're on the hook for something, it allows us to look like a failure. It allows us to be vulnerable, right? We're putting ourselves out there for a chance to possibly make another mistake. And then all the negative thoughts that we had about ourselves starts rushing in. But if you put yourself on the hook, there may be a chance that you learn something about yourself, something that you've never seen before. You may realize that you have a strength within inside of you that you never thought you had. So this is the beautiful part about making decisions. And the people that are successful in life, they're able to make decisions faster. They're able to take actions a lot quicker. I love to tell people that distance, that gap between having a thought or having an idea and taking action is so crucial. And the smaller you can make that gap, the more successful you find yourself being. Because again, if you had an idea of making the iPod and you just did it in 2013 or let's say 2024, there's a good chance you wouldn't sell it. There's a good chance that business wouldn't take off the way that it did when it came out in 2001 or 2002, whenever it was. So swiftness, quickness, all that stuff, speed is very important. And then lesson number 5, before I give it, make sure you subscribe to this channel again so you can get more information like this. But also make sure you leave a comment. I love responding to my comments because it makes me feel closer to you guys. And if there's a topic that you want me to do, I will specifically make that podcast for you. So lesson number 5, the last lesson, holding on to your past is a surefire way to rob yourself of confidence and happiness. Guys, every client, I'll be honest, probably 95%, right? I can't say every client, but 95% of my clients come to me because there's something in their past that they're still struggling with. There's some belief that they develop about who they are, what they can do, or how people see themselves, that they're holding on to this so much so that it's getting in the way of who they can be, where they are going. Have you ever seen someone driving forward but looking in the rearview mirror? No, you haven't. And the reason why is because they will crash. But yet that's what people are doing each and every day. They're driving forward, but they're looking back in their past, not knowing that they can redevelop themselves, not knowing that who they want to be is much more important than who they are right now or who they were in the past. But I still see people who still hold on to these words that they've been told when they were young, these mistakes that maybe they've made when they were a little kid. They hold on to these, and it defines who they are. It defines how much happiness they can have in their life. It defines how much richness, how much success they can have in their life. And that's just keep creating a ceiling on their potential. So just simply let go of that stuff. And one of the best ways to do that is to give yourself grace. It's also important to craft out this vision of where you want to go and to act as if you've already been there. Act as if you've already succeeded at your goals. I need you to walk into the room, not as a person trying to become a millionaire, but walk into a room as if you are a millionaire and conduct yourself as such. And you'll see how things start to be attracted to you. You'll start to see how things in your life start to manifest and become true. And it's all because you're walking as if. You're acting as if, not who you were or who you was. Okay, so that's one of the biggest things. And again, I see it from 95% of all my clients. And that's what therapists like me is for, to be honest, is to help you guys to unlearn those narratives, unlearn those beliefs, and create new ones. All right, so I'm going to go over again the top 5 lessons that I learned as a therapist, just simply watching my clients. Again, these are things that I see from my clients that I've learned that have been really, really big for me. So the first one is we tend to forget our past successes when we are faced with new challenges. The second one is we tend to be more talented than we think. The third lesson, we tend to put more of an emphasis on things that don't matter than the things that do matter. Lesson number 4, the obstacle that is in your way is not hard because of the effort, but it's rather hard because it requires a decision. It requires you to make a tough decision or maybe a new decision. And then lesson number 5, holding on to your past is a surefire way to rob yourself of confidence and happiness. So with that being said, this is Coach Wells. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you later.